I've said before that I think Sonic Mania has some of the best bosses in the entire franchise. So today, I'm going to be bringing you guys my top 5 Sonic Mania bosses. I'll be grading these bosses based off a combination of 3 main things: how fun they are, how challenging they are, and the overall spectacle of the boss. Bonus points if the boss still manages to retain some challenge, even when you're in a super form. And don't be upset if your favorite boss doesn't make the cut. I enjoy all of the bosses in this game. Well, almost. But let's kick this off with number 5, Titanic Monarch Act 2. I mean, what's not to love about this boss? It's fun, it's got a decent amount of challenge, and you've got the sheer spectacle of being teleported from place to place with the pink hands and then having to fight off against some other mini bosses within the main final boss. I prefer going in with a lightning shield because you get the additional ability of double jumping and avoiding taking a lot of damage while still having some challenge compared to going in with a super form. I think my favorite part of this boss is simply just bouncing on top of Eggman multiple times. It's like a bouncy castle or something, I don't know. And number 4, we have Studiopolis Act 1. Now this boss is just so fun, man. It's a very simple concept. You just avoid the red missiles and hit the blue ones, but then with little slopes to make your jumps a bit harder to time, and the fact that you're always running just adds to the challenge and the intensity of the boss. Not to mention that super dope Hard-Boiled Heavies theme playing in the background. My only gripe with the boss is that when you're in your super form, the boss becomes the easiest in the game. I mean, you don't even have to jump into the enemies like you would in other bosses. You can just put down the controller and the boss just defeats itself. So if I really feel like enjoying the boss, then I have to go in without a super form enabled, but nonetheless it still deserves the 4th spot. Number 3 goes to Hydrocity Act 2. Now this boss is just outright amazing. Eggman is literally chasing you with his mech, and you have to hit these objects and direct them so that they mash into Eggman, and then use that to get a bubble, otherwise you'll drown. All while avoiding spikes and obstacles that take your rings and slow you down. It's so well thought out, and the sheer spectacle of it is just amazing. And then the second phase is kind of borrowing more from Hydrocity from Sonic 3, and admittedly the first part of the boss is better, but the second part is still decent, unless you're playing as Knuckles of course. But overall this is a very well thought out boss, and at least with the super form enabled, you still have to worry about breathing unless you got the bubble shield of course, so there's still at least some challenge retained when utilizing the super form with this boss, and it definitely deserves the number 3 spot. Number 2 goes to Chemical Plant Act 2. I think the best part about this boss was the utter shock like the first time you play it, the fact that they would implement Mean Bean Machine into the boss. It was so out of the blue, and it fits the Chemical Plant Zone vibe so perfectly. I used to play so much Mean Bean Machine as a kid, and it's just so fun to get into this boss. It's not too difficult, but it feels really intense. The fact that you're playing Mean Bean Machine, but it's literally a matter of life and death with that amazing Mean Bean boss music in the background, it just adds to the whole spectacle of the boss, and that's why it definitely deserves the number 2 spot on my list. Alright, now it's time for some honorable mentions. Alright, the number 1 best Sonic Mania boss goes to Flying Battery Act 2. This boss is just perfection. It does everything right. You have the spectacle, from Eggman hanging in the sky from a beetle mech, to the fact that you're on a never-ending elevator, and the intense Ruby Delusions music playing in the background. Like, it's just so well done, and it's challenging as well. You've got multiple ways to hit the boss. You can use the rotating poles, you can spin dash jump into the boss. It's not a regular boss. You can't just jump into him and expect him to get hit. You gotta figure out how to do it. You gotta bounce him into the spikes, all while Eggman is shooting projectiles projectiles at you. And then you've got that added risk of if you use the rotating poles and you miss him, then you lose your rings. Not to mention the fact that you can get crushed by the spikes as well. You have to make sure that Eggman isn't too low on the ground that you can't bounce him into the spikes. And even in the super form, you still gotta worry about getting crushed by the spikes, so it's no walk in the park. Sure, your jumps are more powerful, but you still gotta time your jumps so you can hit Eggman effectively. It's just such a well-crafted, well-thought-out boss. You have the spectacle, you have the challenge. It's the most fun boss in the game without a doubt. And that's why it 100% deserves the #1 spot on this list. So yeah, man, that was my top 5 Sonic Mania bosses list. Let me know what your top 5 Sonic Mania bosses are. But yeah, man, Premy out.